welcome to Frankly Speaking with Frank Portinari, the podcast that gains access to real and inspiring people. Before I get on to today's guest, Terry Ellis, I'd just like to make a few announcements. I'd like to thank everybody that continues to support the podcast. It's very much appreciated. Be even more appreciated if you could please subscribe so to give us a little bit more presence on YouTube and social media in general. If anybody would like us to mention any charitable events that are coming up, we're more than gladly do that for you, as long as you give us enough notice. If anybody would like to discuss some form of sponsorship, we're open to suggestions. I'd also clearly like to thank Mac the Hat Media for all their support and advice that they give us. But the main person today is Terry. And I'd like to give you a little bit of background about Terry, and then he'll fill the blanks in for us. Terry is a published author of several books, and we'll get around to talking about those books and the various subjects that they cover. He's also an entrepreneur. He's an anti-knife crime activist. But we'll leave it there for now and let Terry explain his own unique life and those experiences. So, Terry, I'd like to welcome you to Frankly Speaking.
It's nice to be here, Frankie.
Good. I'm glad we finally caught up with each other, Tel. And what I'm going to do straight away, because I love your shirt, Verizon. And this is the book, a book that I've now read twice. The first time I sort of scanned through it because I recognise lots of various places where we live, Tel. So I found that interesting. But I did read it the other night as well for a second time. And I have to say it's a fascinating book. I think it's very well written. I think it's very descriptive.
Okay.
And I should have known that because I enjoyed the one that you did before that as well. So let's start off with what made you write the book, Terry?
It's the last one in a trilogy of books that got me to where I am today. As you know, I wrote Living Amongst the Beasts first, and then I wrote The Final Countdown to My Freedom. But people wanted to know what took me into prison in the first place. So I decided to write Verizon. Verizon sort of takes me from the age of 11 through all my criminal history up until I got nicked in 2008 for nicking £5 million worth of pension chips and £100 million worth of data. And that's why I wrote Verizon, just to give people a sort of an heads up on what got me to where I am today.
And how did the media describe that? What did they liken you to?
The media says it was a true Ocean's 11 style heist in Camden. As I said, we stole £5 million. But ultimately, there was just over £100 million of data on there. The data center was in King's Cross, one of the most heavily guarded data centers in Europe. State of the art security, 6 layers of security. They had 10 security guards and copious amounts of technicians in there. And we went in there on I think it was a 7th or 8th of December 2007, and we was dressed as police officers. We took police vans, cars. We took an Alsatian dog with us, and we knocked on the door as a fast response team. We said that there was someone up on the roof, and for them to let us in. We then gained access to it. We tied up all the security guards, but there was also a live feed from another security company on the entrance to the motherboards where it was kept. So what happens then? We had to cut the live feed, and then a security company phoned Verizon, and I answered the phone and said that there was been a mainframe surge in the computer system, and all the CCTV would be down for the next 45 minutes. They luckily for us, they said that was okay. And then we just proceeded with the job. I think we spent just over an hour in now. As I said, we took £5 million worth of motherboards, and then we walked out of there, shut the doors, really, basically.
And
No
and to stress as well, Cherry, you didn't have any tools, did you? You didn't have any weapons, did you?
No, well, the whole idea of organising a team of guys that were very professional, who don't want to cause anyone any harm, and also we don't want to carry guns. So the whole idea was dressing as police officers and walk in there and show our warrant cards, and basically not terrorise anyone like the normal robbers. Anyone can go into a bank or a post office or do a van. It takes a few seconds. We wanted to be in this place for over an hour to do what we had to do, and that was to take every single motherboard out of there. Because we was hired by a group of facilitators to clear it out, because there was certain information on the motherboards that would have been beneficial to the FBI, MI5, for prosecuting a number of banks across Europe, America, and England. If you read the book, we never knew this at the time, but a lot of the information that was on there was around the prime mortgage fiasco. Where the banks lent billions and billions of pounds out, and they earned an absolute fortune. So we were paid just over £1 million to go in there and take the motherboards and make sure that them motherboards never saw the light of day again.
And to all intents and purposes, so you got away with it, didn't you? Initially, you got away with that.
Well, yeah, I got nicked a year later. They've never recovered any of the motherboards. They never recovered any money. In fact, only 2 of us ever got nicked for it. It was, a pure fluke. A friend of mine got nicked on a bit of work because he used a police uniform, and I knew him. They then took my mug shot down to the Verizon and said, "Does this guy's face ring a bell?" And the security guard said, "Yeah, that's the one that done all the talking. That's the guy that orchestrated everything. He was definitely the one in control and in charge of everything." So the next thing I knew, I was at my girlfriend's place in William Road, and it was about 5:30 in the morning, and I just got up to have a cigarette. She was in bed, a kid, and as I was going to lean over the balcony to have a bag, I noticed a lady walk past and a guy, and they just didn't look right. So I sort of walked back, stepped back a bit, and I walked through the flat, and picked up my rucksack, my jacket, and pulled myself up onto the roof and slipped along. And when I got to the other end, I think I was 3 stories high this place. I went down a little fire exit ladder, and then I jumped about 15 foot to the ground. I was right down the other end of the flats. And as I walked out, there was about 25-year-old Bill walking into a gaff. I never even had time to warn her. And then after that, I spent just under a year on the run.
I'm laughing, so because I'm sitting here 100 yards away from Weedham Road.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was. The funny thing was, I had a bank book. I think I had about 300,000 quid in there, and I had 20 grand. I think it was 20 grand in a rucksack. And like an idiot, as I ran through the flat, I picked up the 20 grand, but missed my bank details and all the books, and so I left 300 grand there and took 20. Hence, I had to go back to work to live while I was on the run.
Yeah. And you did a variety of things, Tel, didn't you? You did a variety of things.
Well, yeah, I've lived a very checkered life. I was in the care system from a very early age. It wasn't a great experience. I think I was 11 years old. I was put into my first care home. I was taken there by my social worker and my mum, and told I would be there for a couple of days. Once they left, there was two. I think there was 3 guys and 2 women. I remember, and as my mum walked out first, and then my social worker walked out. I said, "Look, I don't want to stay here." And as I went to walk away, one of the guys that was working there just punched me straight in the face. It was crazy, I think it was the first time I've ever been hit by a grown up. I've had my fair share of whacks from other kids, but that was growing up, part of growing up. But for a man to whack me straight in the face and then for them to all jump on top of me and punch me in the back of the head and then punch me in the back, and at the same time telling me to be quiet and calm down was crazy. So it was really the start of me just really hating authority, really being anti anything that done, with grown-ups. I became very rebellious, very confrontational, and really angry because of that one incident. I stayed there for about a year. Well, no, I think it was about 8 months. And then one day they came in and said, "Like, you're going." I thought I was going home. And then I ended up in a place called Stanford House in Shepherd's Bush. I remember driving up there thinking, okay, what's going on now? Where am I going to land? And all of a sudden I drove into this gap, and it was like, it was mental. There was loads of kids, from 11 years old up to 16, 17 years old, all standing around in a big courtyard. And this place had 3 or 4 dormitories. You had O'Hare, Hanby, Hastings, Church House, and the CP unit. And I was 11, I was 11-year-old kid, and I had a bag of gear. And they said, "Go in that office over there." And I had to walk the gauntlet across this yard with all these kids just staring at me. And when I got into the office, the guy said, "Just fucking stand over there and don't fucking move." And I thought, "Oh God, where have I just come to?" And I was only young. And then I went through the this normal shit that they give you in these places. And they took me to the wing or to the place where I would be staying. They showed me around. The guy that showed me around was quite a nice old fella, and I thought, well, this is all right. And then all of a sudden, I remember that afternoon when all the other boys came back. There was a group of guys. They were the oldest ones. They ran the whole place, and one of them just walked up to me and said, "You got to give us all your tuck this week, otherwise you're going to get an idea." And then punched me straight in the face. And the next thing, 3 of them just kicking the shit out of me on the bed. It was crazy. It was a crazy gaff, but that was my introduction to Stanford House. It was a mental place, but it was the care system of the 70s.
Well, making reference to the book again, and obviously I've read parts of the other book as well. Living Among the Beasts, there's obviously some explanation in there as well.
Yeah.
Going back to your early life, your very early life, and your education, you struggled with your education, but there was a reason for that, though, Terry, wasn't there?
Yeah, my dyslexia. I didn't realise at the time. I just thought I was stupid. Mm. But I was always bright. I could always figure things out, but academically, I was really just not on point. And this made me very, very angry, made me embarrassed. And what I did, instead of just owning it, I excluded myself from school. I bunked off, and it led to so much shit in my life because I couldn't just say, "Look, I've got dyslexia. I just can't learn. I just can't spell." I was a really good reader, but I just could not spell. All I kept seeing was the words weren't coming out. Mm. And no matter how hard I tried, I spent weeks reading the dictionary. I spent writing the same words 50 times. And the way my brain was programmed, or is programmed, I could write something 50 times and think, "Oh, great," and then I'd come back the next day and try to write it again, and it'd be gone. And it was the most infuriating time of my life, And unfortunately, that the teachers and people that were looking after me thought that I was just being disruptive, And so what they did, they sort of made me stand in the corner. And then they made me stand outside in the hallway. And then when I'd never done any homework, they took me to the headmaster, who then proceeded to give me 6 of the fucking best every day. And no matter how much I protested and said, "I just can't do it. I just can't write, and I can't do this," he just give me number 6 of the best. So it was a vicious circle of that and trying to explain. And in the end, I just give up and I just bunked off school all the time. I never went back. I think I actually deliberately stabbed another kid, so they would exclude me from school. You know, I stabbed him with a pen case. So it was a metal pen case. I stabbed him in the hand, and with that, I got expelled.
So some amazing ironies, really, Tel, because you've gone on to become a published author, and you know, and we'll touch on it a bit later. You're very much involved and supportive of the, change your life and put down your knife. So you've massively turned your life around, that's for sure. Can we touch on to the bit about home life and I suppose some introduction into how the stealing came about, how that became almost natural to you?
Yeah, as a young kid, we in Camden Town, the place is quite a poor area. It was a nice. I love Camden Town. I've lived there all my life. I love it. It's always been really good for me. I've always been able to earn a pound note, and from a very early age, we as the kids in our street, we went out and we earned money. We never got pocket money. So what we did, we went out and we broke into places, and we were fortunate enough that where I lived in Camden Town, in Kentish Town and King's Cross, there was quite a lot of warehouses. So, we would do clothes warehouses, we would do toy warehouses, cake warehouses, comic warehouses. So we was always getting money as 8, 9, 10-year-old kids.
Mm.
Go on.
Now I was going to say, closer to home, you was also somebody else's accomplice, so to speak.
Oh yeah, from a very early age, my mum was a professional shoplifter. She was always, I used to watch her. She used to pick me up from the bingo. She used to say, "Come, let's go shopping," and she used to give me chocolate, and she'd open it and go, "All right," and I'd walk around and eat it. She made me do that, and then she would just take it. I just see her taking things, and the basket would be empty, and she would put a couple of things in there, and I'd notice she took so much stuff, and she had it all on her. So that was my first foray into criminality. And then I remember I'd done a warehouse and I nicked all these crystal glasses and knife and forks and everything, and they were quite expensive. And I told her where they were, and I remember waking me up one evening and telling me to go and get as many as I could. So so I learned at a very early age that if I got caught doing anything, she would give me a right idea. Mm. She would kick the shit out of me. She would batter me. However, if I got away with it, then she would reward me.
Yeah.
So that was so it was definitely a learned behavior. Criminality for me was definitely a learned behavior, but there was also a part of me that I hated watching her do it, because not necessarily the embarrassment or the shame of her getting caught. Because she was a one-parent family, if she had got caught, we'd have all had to go in a home, and that's what I dreaded more than anything. And I ended up in a home because I helped her, because I then went out and I started robbing, shoe shops, sweet shops. There wasn't a shop in Kentish Town I don't think I robbed over there when I was young. I was doing warehouse and the money I was earning, I was actually bringing it home. I was giving her it, but as quick as I got it, it went. And then she never changed. It's done the same thing. I think the only respite I had was when, believe it or not, is when I went into care, because then, it was over. I was now in a completely different world where what was happening at home really didn't really give a, didn't care, because I was not there. My biggest fear as a kid was going in a home.
Yeah. And
there I was at the age of 11, now in a home. So it was like, I'd done everything to avoid it and help, and all of a sudden I'm sitting in a shithole being, if anyone has ever been to Stamford As, I'm talking about, the beatings, were just in the daytime. In the nighttime, this place came alive.
Yeah.
You're talking 20 kids that are, some of the, the most, vicious and destructive little fuckers you could imagine. And I saw kids getting, I got beaten in my bed, when I was a kid, like my cupboards would be pulled up and I'd be getting punched and kicked. People would be getting pissed on, spat on. all their stuff was taken out of their lockers. And it was a real nightmare of a gaff. The older kids were 14, 15, and 16 years old. One of them in particular was a geezer called Richard. I remember, big black geezer, and he had an accomplice called Paddy, and I can't remember the other guy's name offhand. And the three of them used to just terrorise everyone. So on tuck night, when you got your tuck, they would they would just be waiting at the top of the stairs when you came up, and they would just everyone would just go in there and give it to them. I never. So, as soon as I got my time, I walked that way. And then 2 seconds later, they all came in after me and waved me in again. But I wasn't going to give nothing up. They took it. You can't fight free people. No. I suffered it for a few months. And then, one day I went swimming, and it was because luckily there was a small swimming pool where we was. And Paddy and his other little sidekick, they were there, and so I was swimming away. I left all the worries back at the dormitory, and I was swimming. Next things, I felt something in my side, bam, and I looked, and as I came up to the surface, all my side was bleeding, So this little shit, the step under the water, Paddy. And went to do it again. So I grabbed hold of he had an afro comb, and it was all sharpened up. So luckily, I was a really strong swimmer as a kid. I grabbed hold of it, pulled him under, and then I just nailed him. I nailed him in the head, everywhere. And by the time he came up, he was covered in claret and screaming blue murder and pointing at me like I'd done something mad, But it was purely to protect myself. But it was like a vicious circle, the last thing I wanted to do was do that, but it was a case of, that's why I can understand the kids nowadays. There's lots of kids out there who are really vicious, and unless you're actually carrying yourself, and this was the case of me taking the weapon off someone and giving it to them. I can sort of empathise with what a lot was going on, simply because of my lived experiences, because. I never wanted to do that, but I was put in a situation where I had no other option but to do this. And then I realised how easy it was. And I realised that violence really was a real good currency for me, because after this I became, I became really, really, really handy,
Yeah. Well, I had a similar experience to when I was in Swaleside. I certainly wasn't looking for any confrontation. I had a family to get home to, So I wasn't trying to draw attention to myself. But the first time it wasn't one person, it was two people, came to rob me.
Yeah.
I just happened to have a jug of hot water. The last thing at night, you go and fill your jug up with the hot water out the urn. And I dare say they must have been soiled up. And the gut instinct was to launch the water. It wasn't preconceived. It wasn't one of these situations where people say, oh yeah, you put sugar in it and all this. This was just a pure gut reaction to get them away from me. But of course, I learnt from that, because once the word went round that that's what would happen if you do come near me. So I can partly understand what you're saying. It's not something you necessarily want to do. But no. If you don't fight back, if you don't let it be known, then you're in big trouble. Big trouble. What was your relationship with your dad? What was that like, Terry?
My relationship with my dad is okay. He came down. He was a black cab driver. So what he would do, he would come down, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and if I'd misbehave in the daytime, he would then come and give me a right-hander, and the same with my brother. So he would just chastise us. His idea of parental guidance was come down, you get in the bath, wash behind your ears, and shut the fuck up. And then if we'd done anything wrong, he'd give us 6 of the best and get in bed. That was it. That was all I knew of him. I never really had that sort of relationship with my dad where it was like father son. It was never like that. It was, in fact, I don't think I can remember one time I've ever had that father relationship with him. However, saying that, all the time I was in prison, he looked after me with money, phone calls, everything else. So our relationship really is a lot better. Now, as an older man, than when I was a kid. He was a young guy. He was a lot like me when I was younger. I did everything with my dick. It was all I did 24 hours a day. I was after birds, after gear, I was going out enjoying myself. So he was a lot like that, and he never ever changed until he was in his 30s or 40s. So, and then, and then he went away he done a life sentence for murder. And then I sort of got to know him while he was in prison. Well, when I was in prison, I used to go and visit him in Brixton. We used to get into prison visits. I can remember going down and seeing Goldfinger, Tony Palmer, done a Brinks Mat. He was in there, and as a young kid, I was introduced to all these villains, and it was I felt like I was honoured to meet him. It was a funny experience, but we have a great relation now.
Good. Oh, that's good to hear, Terry.
Yeah.
So, as an outsider, listening in, it's like all roads, led to prison, didn't it? Or certainly some form of detention, whether that was in a home environment, or I don't mean your own personal home. What I mean is institutions, is what I mean. You'd gone from one to another.
As I said, I end up stabbing this kid. I end up doing a month in the CP there, and when you've as a young kid, 12 years old or whatever it was at that time, we do a month in the block, with no talking or nothing. It was quite challenging for me, and I started reading a lot. I was reading loads of cowboy books, believe it or not. But I found the solitude really good. I learned to read more. I think I spent a couple of months down the block there, and then I had to go back to the wing, back to the dorm that I was in, and I was fortunate enough that the main protagonists were gone. They'd moved into another wing. So when I got back to the Hanby where I was originally, the whole place had changed. There was a new top dog in town, and it was me. So it was me and my little firm. Because I got a few guys on my side, and all the guys that were bullying, we put them in their place, and the whole place settled down again, and it was like normal. People. I was never one to bully anyone. I was never one to bully kids, and we just let everyone have their tuck and let them live like normal kids, and the place settled down a bit. Yeah, it took a few weeks, and then it was all right. And I think I got so entrenched in the place. I actually quite liked it. I was going swimming. I was going to the gym. I had a couple of really good pals there. And then one day they come for me again. When you're settled and you think, well, you make it your home. Yeah. And all of a sudden they said, pack your gear, you're off. I actually thought I was going home. They said your mum and your social worker's coming this afternoon. That was I think 12 o'clock. They said they were coming, and then all of a sudden they came back and saw me again and said, we're sorry, they're not coming out till 5, 6 o'clock. So I had to wait all day, and then when they did come, I thought I was going home. And, everyone had recommended me to go home. I'd sort of turned a corner, but unfortunately, the powers that be had already made their mind up before they even came there. They weren't interested in what I'd done there, the education I'd taken part in. They were just interested in farming me out to a place in Wiltshire. And a community home, so I ended up going 100 miles away from my family, and but luckily for me, I landed in a place called Greenacres, and it was just surreal. It was just lush green fields. There was a farm, the great manor house, and there was loads of girls there, which was like, to me, it was a blessing. I was young. I think I was 12 and a half, 13 then, and I was full of testosterone. I thought I was Jack the Lad. I was and then the first night I was there, I met some girl came into my room and educated me on the birds and the bees, and then I was off after that. For the next couple of years I was like in and out of the girls' dorms, and then unfortunately for me, I got one of the girls pregnant now, and then they kicked me out. They sent me back to London, and I think I was 15 then, and I was probably one of the youngest kids in care to get a girl pregnant. But I was also one of the youngest kids to actually go into a shared flat with two other guys. It was in Dorney Towers in Swiss Cottage, and I was given a letter to sign on, and then they washed their hands of me. So I signed on. I got my first dole check, and then which was about 23 quid, and then I went and got a job for about 110 quid a week. It was filling skips, and it was the most shit job you could imagine. And I was trying to teach myself to cook. I was eating like I think boiled potatoes, mince, and beans every day, and a slice and a loaf of bread, because I never had a clue how to cook. And but I was getting better. But I was just going to work. I was living in Swiss Cottage. It was quite an affluent area. Right, I can see right into London Zoo. I can see Rolls Royces, Jags. I can see wealth like it was coming out of my ear holes. And every single pub, restaurant, that I walked past was just oozing with dough. And there I was, potless, in the middle of London, trying to go straight, 110 quid a week. And I'm thinking, I'm never going to get out of this. And then I say it's unfortunate for me, or fortunate for me, the two guys that I actually moved in with, they were a lot older than me. They were in their 20s, and they were armed robbers. And I met them on in the hallway of the flat where I was walking, every day. I never saw a lot of them. I heard them because they come in every night pissed or with different birds and loads of drugs. But and then I would go to work. So but after a few months, we got speaking, and then they said, "Would you fancy earning some money?" I had a fallout with my boss because I just hated the job. And told him to shove it, and went home, and I got offered the job. And that was it. I was off. It was armed robbery was my new employment.
Mm. I don't expect you to talk through every aspect of the individual jobs, because quite honestly, so there was a few, and I'd like people to purchase the book and read in more detail, because, as I say, it's a fascinating read, yeah. And partly because I don't want to leave anything out, because it's very, very interesting. But eventually, you served a sentence, didn't you?
Yeah, I was. I think my first sentence I got for armed robbery as a kid. I can always remember. I was living in I'd rented out a flat. I was about 20, 21 years old. I was Jack the Lad. I was like, I thought I'd cracked it. I was going out to the clubs every night, Les the Leeds, low profile, the Sunil. And I was mixing with all the older guys, and and we were doing like bundles of post office and a few banks and a building societies. We were just flying for them every other day. I had so much money; it was unbelievable as a kid. And then one day I went indoors. Well, I put the key in the flat, and I just felt something right. It was just too quiet. The hairs on my back went up. Put the key in the front door. Next thing, the door shot open, and out of nowhere, there was a shower behind me. I will come out. They come from around the corner. Next thing, I got kicked in the bollocks. There was all guns at my head, kicked in the bollocks. My legs got pulled away from me, and I was on the floor. And I got a little hiding, and then don't move. And up until that moment, I thought it was just a game. I knew that if we got nicked, we got nicked. But up until then, really, I just thought it was a game. And it was only when I was getting smashed across the head with a gun that I realised that this ain't a game anymore. And that was it. I spent a couple of days in a police station, and next thing I knew, I was put on remand to a place called Ashford.
Yeah.
And if I thought I'd been through anything bad up to that moment, then Ashford was a completely different kettle of fish. I was not au fait with grown-ups anyway. But the people I met there, or the screws I met there, were proper scum of the earth. You know, they were all ex-army. You know, and they just resented anything to do with criminality. And the minute I got in now, I had a little altercation with a guy. And I ended up down the block, and my introduction was a massive kicking. I went in front of the governor. I got a month down the block, and as soon as I walked out of the office, they waved me in from the governor's office to my cell. And I was black and blue. I had black eye, busted shoulder. I thought, I couldn't believe what was going on. I was so scared; it was unbelievable. And then they came back to my cell with a bucket and with some soap in it, a scrubbing brush, and said, "Right, every day you're going to clean that. You're going to clean this floor with a scrubbing brush. There's a bucket of water over there where you can drink out of. There's a bowl where you can wash yourself. But this has got to be done every day." So I've done it. 40 minutes later, they came back, took me out, told me where to empty the water, told me where to put the bucket back, and then they told me to do a bed pack. You know, you had to put like a blanket, a sheet, blanket, and you got to fold it really neat. You know, and everyone had one down the block. And you know, you couldn't have it in your cell because you wanted that to sleep, and you had to sit in the chair all day. If they caught you laying down on it, you'd get an idea. So I made the bed pack, and they said, "What do you think of that?" I said, "It's all right, you know." "It's all right, what?" You know, I said, "All right, sir." And the next thing, whack, 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 and they kicked me from there to the cell again, and it was like it went on for a few days. This was their way of teaching young kids that if you fuck with us, regardless, no matter what, even if you do anything right, if you even look at us or say anything out of place, you're going to get an idea. And you know, it was a real horrible place because I used to watch kids come down at my own age. And I used to look through the, you know, because you know you wasn't allowed to talk. You never had no books. You never had nothing down there apart from silence. You can't bang on the walls or nothing. And you'd hear other kids coming down there from the governor's office, and they're you know, they're either beaten from the governor's office to the cell, or they'd let them walk down, and they'd ask them to make a bed pack. But you knew what was coming. You couldn't even warn them. You couldn't warn them. And then you'll have some kid who thought he was Jack Delan, and he'd be going, "All right, you know, all this and that." Next thing, you know, these guys were like 6'3", 6'4", big guys. And you had these little, you know, us were young kids, you know, and then they would just weigh them in. This was the initiation. It was a crazy place, but but you know, I spent a bit of time now. I think all in all, I spent, I think, just over 2.5 years. So that sentence, I got 4 years as a kid, and I went from there to Chelmsford to Aylesbury. Aylesbury was like the Scrubs. You know, have you ever seen Porridge? You know, the old Victorian prison. It was like that, you know. And so as a young kid, I can remember looking up to my window as I walked in the cell, and the window was about 7 foot off the ground. and I had to run and jump up, pull myself on the bars to pull myself up just to look out the window. And the bed was now down to the floor. I had a jug of water and a piss pot, and I thought, fucking hell, what have I got myself into? You know, and I spent a bit of time now, you know, just over 1.5 years there, and the place was just heaving with trouble. You know, you had guys in their 20s, and all they wanted to do was prove themselves that they were the top dog, and there was stabbings. It was just crazy, you know. And luckily, I got out of there. I got out of there in one piece with my sanity, and decided to go straight. I got married.
Yeah.
You know?
So between that sentence and Verizon, was there any other incarcerations in between that?
Yeah. I got nicked. I don't know. About 15 years later, I think it was. You know, I've been working in Spain, doing runs, you know, with a puff. I know. Was it? Yeah, I was working. I was working in Spain. It was raining up puff. I was working in Amsterdam doing the Charlie bits and pieces, Ease and everything else. I went to Cambodia for a little while, doing some weed out there, and then I ended up in France. And then I you know, I was smashing it. We smashed it all over the gap. We earned lots of money. and I ended up in France doing some cigarettes, and then I came back to England, and stupidly I'd done a favour to someone, and ended up getting 6 years for a 2 kilo coke.
Yeah,
it was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. So I ended up. I got 6 years. I did just 2,000, which is a 4, and I spent 4 years where you just said in Swaleside. I'd done every single day there. And they let me out from there. But that was by far one of the worst places I've ever been in for violence. I'm talking every single day, morning, noon, and night violence, breakfast, dinner, tea, violence. It's exercise violence, association violence. We're talking juggins of water with sugar in. Them days are gone now. It's oil now. There's kitchens in there. You get oiled. And people boil oil in their kettles now as well. And it just sticks to you. This doesn't come off. And I've heard geezers scream forever. The screams never leave you. When you see someone and you can't even comfort them. You can't even. Even if you try to comfort them and you can't, they're just screaming. They're trying to push you away. Their skin's peeling off. Their ears are raw. It's for me. I think it's the terriblest thing ever. Oil and sugar, because it's a punishment that just really goes on and gives a lot.
I remember in Swaleside there was 2. I'm trying to think. They were Kurds. Yeah, I think they were Kurds. They were like basic Kurdish militants, and they placed a bomb at some Turkish tourist information centre. I think they put it on the wrong windowsill. I think it was a bank next door. Anyway, they were basically charged with terrorist offences, and they were sent to Swaleside. And there was quite a large contingent of Turks in Swaleside at the time, mainly drug related, you can imagine. And they put a price out on this fella, and both of them, and one of them was in the kitchens, and he went to bend down to take something out of the oven, and on top of it was a pot of hot oil, and this bloke just walked up, poured it all down his head and all down his back. Fortunately, I'd seen stabbings, but I didn't have to witness that. But the screams alone would send chills, through you. And when I spoke to the old pine liquor, the Reverend Roger Green, he was told to come along and obviously see the chap. And he said they literally had him laying in a bath, and they had tin foil trying to keep his flesh intact.
Yeah.
So as I say, and that was something I never even witnessed. It was like listening to an animal in pain and knowing you couldn't do anything about it. It was absolutely horrific. It was terrible.
I said, we actually got threatened in Swaleside that they were going to take the kitchens off us. So we called a truce. There was no one could use the oil. Because if they did, then the kitchens would be shut down. So it went back to stabbings after that. The oiling stopped. The sugar started again. Sugar and water, which wasn't as bad as the oil, but still as painful. But the stabbings were started. I can remember one instance. There was a load of guys from Thailand, about 8 or 9 of them, and there was only little. But they was vicious, fucking really vicious little fuckers they were. But they were nice guys. I had eaten with them a few times, and but they didn't take no prisoners. And this big black guy and this mixed race guy picked on one of them, and they beat him up on the stairs. And I can always remember this tall guy, the mixed race guy, and he was sort of laughing as if he got away with it. And I can remember I was on the freeze and I was looking down, and he was just going to make a phone call. And just as he was just about to go in there, I see the whole landing came alive from all directions with these little Thai guys, and they all had knives, and they all just jumped on him, and one held him around the side like that from the back, and they were just stabbing him in the face and neck, everywhere, all over the body, and then all I saw was just a pool of blood, and then him hit the floor, and then all the knives just were gone. They just went, and then every single door on the landing just went. Everyone just shut up, and this guy was just left in a pool of blood. But that's how vicious it is. People, doing criminality is easy. I think when you're a criminal, all we're doing is we're doing that, and we're getting rewarded and whatever. But the consequences of actually getting caught, and going into prison, it's I wouldn't wish it on anyone now. It's just.
Well, I purposely in my book, so and I know you've read my book. I purposely didn't include, quite a lot of the violence, because I knew that my own wife and probably daughters, and other family members would probably would read it, and it's not something you really want to. You don't want to portray yourself in a certain way either. But it was dog eat dog, and if you wasn't prepared to give it out when necessary, you were going to get hurt. There's no doubt about that, And I was very, very lucky. I won't go into it now, but I was just sure interviews, and I was very, very lucky. And if I didn't believe in God before that day, I certainly warmed to him after. Assuming he's a he. I certainly warmed to him after that.
Yeah, I think I was the same as you. Even when I wrote Living Amongst the Beasts and Verizon, I never really harped on about the violence inside prison, simply because it was just normal. It was so normal, the violence, that you never, didn't even warrant a mention. But I think I think subconsciously or subliminally, the reason we don't say anything is because if we ever go back in prison again, we don't want our girlfriends or wives or kids to actually realise the sort of cesspit or the den of inequity that we're going into. Because it's a world within a world that has its own rules. And I don't fear prison. Prison's all right. Like if you get a sentence in it, it's no drama. But I do fear the people in it. I know that it's gonna come a time when I got to defend myself. I was always pretty lucky. I was always quite handy. I could fly out the box. I've done taekwondo, kickboxing, kid. So I was always able to look after myself. So I never really got much aggravation. And if I did, I dealt with it really quick. And I let everyone know that this is what you're going to get if you fuck with me. But I think I only let that be known a few times, and thank God I never got no bollocks in prison.
Yeah. After the Verizon incident, we'll politely call it, as I say, all intents and purposes, you very nearly completely got away with that. How did that end up, Terry?
Well, I got one on the 16th of September 2008. That's when it ended up. I was on a run. And I was in Dunstable, and I was just going to Leagrave. I was actually on my way to pick up my passport to go to Thailand, and I'd packed all my stuff, and I was waiting for my passport to come, and I'd got the tickets, I got everything, but I was just waiting for my passport to be delivered because unfortunately I left my passport in the flat when I done a guide that time. Anyway, I was walking up the road, and next thing I knew, the whole street came alive with old Bill. I was on the phone to one of my pals out in London. Next thing, a car came up the pavement, across the grass, and there was a brick wall. I was next to a brick wall, and I thought, where the fuck is he going? And as I turned around, I saw another car coming this way, and I thought, that's going to smash into me. So I jumped up, and both of them smashed into each other. And as I rolled off, a van pulled up, and next thing, all these guys just got out of it, and they put me on the deck, and they give me an ID, and they cuffed me. And then all I heard was like, we got him, we got him, and I was all clapping, we got the cunt and all this. And I said, look, and they said, who are you? What's your name? And I said my name was Eddie something at the time, Eddie O'Brien, I think it was at that time I was using. I said, you should have asked me that before you nearly fucking killed me. You've obviously got the wrong guy. And then they said no, and then they brought a picture over, and they went, no, we've got you, you fucker, and that's it. So they left me. I was there for 10 minutes on the side of the road, and the next thing I was in a car, and I was being like driven to Kentish Town Police Station at a rate of knots. And when I walked in Kentish Town Police Station, I got a standing ovation from all the old Bill. I don't think it was for me though. It was for the ones that called me. But there was clapping. We finally got the cunt, and that was it. I spent 3 days in there, and then I was taken to Pentonville, and then it began, and the next journey of my incarceration began, which was the most beneficial, I must say.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'll be looking forward to getting to that bit, Terry, because it's. As I say, because I've read the book, so I know the journey, and I've not wanted to talk solely about the criminality, that side of it, because I know of the transformation that took place afterwards, but more to the point, how it came about, and. Well, I say extraordinary because before I'd actually met you and spoken with you before, very briefly, I was very sceptical, if I'm honest. I thought, my God, how's he done that? How on earth has he done that? And then, obviously, reading the book, Living Amongst the Beasts, it gave a much clearer explanation. And then I could definitely see where you were coming from. So what was the actual sentence?
So I got 16 years, 9 months. I should have got a 10. But unfortunately, as I said, the FBI, MI5 were on my case, and I was when I got nicked for this, they actually came and visited me. The MI5 came and visited me when I was in Wandsworth, and they said, look, you can walk out of here. We can give you 3 years and you'll be out. You'll be out before you know it. But all we want is the information on their motherboard, and we want all your mates, and we want the people that set the job up. We want to know who they are. And I said, oh, fuck off. I said, I'm looking at 10 years, no guns, no nothing. I don't know anyone who's done what we've done. But I do know people that have nicked millions of pounds with no guns, got like 5 and 6 and 8 years because they've not used any guns or hurt anyone. Yeah. So we assumed, rightly so, that we were looking at 9 or 10 years, or 11 years max. Anyway, next thing I know, we've gone down to get sentenced. My mate's got 9. It's his first time. He's an ex-soldier. He's got 9 years, and I've gone up next, and they given me 9 years. I thought, lovely, they've given me 9 years, and all of a sudden they give me a consecutive. So I had to do another 6, 7 on top of it. So I think it was it all amounted up to the 16 years, 9 months. I think I've got 50 or 60 years all together. But I had, after I added it all up and deducted everything, I was then left with 8 years, 4.5 months to do, which at the end of the day, wasn't that bad. But considering my mate, he had to do 4.5. It was a bit of a liberty, considering we both done exactly the same.
Yeah.
But if you mess with if you mess with MI5 and you mess with the banks and you mess with the government, then you really ain't got no redress at the end of the day. You're going to get whatever they deem is necessary for you, because they wanted to keep me away from the street. They didn't want me to write this either. I've had a lot of shit from my probation officer about writing these books. I was told I couldn't write anything, and I said, well, watch me, And so far they threatened me with recalls and everything else, but they haven't been able to do anything. So as long as I don't profit from it, most of the stuff we do goes into helping other people anyway. So they can't really do nothing, because we set up like a charity that we help other people write books, and we do everything but basically nothing. So really they can't really do me for actually profiting from my books or anything else, which is great.
So let's get on to the what's been referred to as the Grendon experiment, and how you became part of that experiment.
I'll tell you what, I was sitting in Rye with some really good people. I'm not going to mention them because they're they're quite well known, and it's not for me to mention anyone else that I've been in prison with. I was with some really good guys, and I was with some really shit guys. And I was listening to these guys, these other guys on another table talking about criminality, and they were talking to some young kids. And I'd been through the system, I'd done it, been there, wrote the book, so to speak. And I thought, I've got 8.5 years to do, and I can't be listening to this shit. I really need to do something on this sentence that's going to change my life. And I spoke to my pals, and they said, you've got to be fucking mad, because I said I want to go to Grendon. Grendon is a therapeutic prison. It's full of serial killers, rapists, paedophiles, the token armed robber, but most of them have killed their families, and they some of the horriblest fuckers you could ever imagine to me. Anyway, because of one of my crime, because it was deemed as not normal to go in somewhere and tie up 10 security guards and do what we did with no guns, I was deemed as a bit off key. When I did get arrested, I actually ended up trying to escape when I went to St Anne's ID School in Tottenham. I had 8 old Bill with me. When they put my cuffs on, one of them was a bit loose, and on the way there, I managed to get it off when I was in the van. There was 3 old Bill with me in the van, and the rest of them were in 2 escort cars, one in front, one behind. When we got to St Anne's, the escort car pulled up. They all sat in it. I thought, lovely. The next one pulled up. They was all sat in it, lovely. And I'm left with 3 now. One of them's got out. He's gone and knocked on the door, and he's walked in. And I'm left with 2 guys in their 40s. And I think I'm just going to do both of these mugs, and that was it. And then one of them was sat behind me reading the paper. And before, I was just going to do them then and there and just try and get out of there. And then all of a sudden, one of them, he's opened the door, and he's pulled the door open, he's stepped out. So I thought, fuck it. I'll jump down, wait, just give him a right hander, knocked him flying, and I've gone. I've got 1 handcuff on me, run around the corner. Just as I run around the corner to hit the gate, 2 old Bill walked in now. So I've come back, jumped on a bonnet of a car, run up to the roof, onto a van, and then I jumped from the van to the wall, and I thought, lovely, I'm going to just pull myself over, because it was about 15 foot this wall. And I'm just about putting him, and the handcuff was on top of the wall, and I just my arm just went down. And next thing, someone grabbed hold of my leg, but someone come running up the van as well and grabbed me by the neck, and with his weight and the other one pulling my legs, and I fucking end up on the deck again. And they cuffed me, beat me a little bit, and then I got sent back to Swaleside, and not Swaleside, Pentonville, and they said that this man needs fucking help. He needs therapy. So they gave me a psychologist to see, and as I was there a few months, I started speaking to this psychologist, and I realised I was a little bit off key. My thinking was completely off key. I never had no fear, no empathy. I thought criminality was the be and end all, and I looked up to all my peers criminally, and I thought this was all in my DNA, And then, as I said, I was sitting in that prison thinking, I'm listening to these guys, I'm listening to these young guys, listening to these criminals, and I'm thinking, I don't want to be 50 or 60 years old, and young kids looking at me and trying to aspire to be like me. I need to change my life, and I need to show my kids and other kids out there that there's more to life than spending it all in prison. 20 fucking years or 15 years in prison is just not worth doing what we did. So I decided to go to Grendon, and Grendon, as I said, is a therapeutic prison. I ended up doing therapy 5 days a week, and really looking at myself and seeing how I tick. Up until I went to the therapy, I never ever saw myself as a victim. I normalised my whole life from going into care. I normalised getting beaten, abused in the care system, and I thought that was normal. I thought that being this angry and this aggressive and this confrontational and being a thief was normal. It was only when I looked at my behaviour through therapy, because even though I was surrounded by these people who were the worst of the worst, they were either deviant or they were straight goers that killed people, and they saw criminality as really bad. So I'm now having people tell me that criminality is really bad. I'm fighting against it, and you know, after a year of this back and forth, I started to realise that, you know, my life was really shit, you know, and what I had achieved and what I'd done didn't amount to nothing, you know. So it's really, you know, I saw my criminal values and I looked at it and I thought, you know what, I've been protecting a system that really has only got me into, you know, it's just brought me so much pain in my life. You know, I lost all my relationships. I lost my kids basically when I went in prison. I've lost everything because I was a criminal. You know, I lost years behind the door, being isolated, and this had a major impact on my life, whether it's mentally and physically, emotionally. You know, and I tried to cope. You know, I think I had a few breakdowns mentally, but I never even knew I did. You know, until I actually done therapy. But I learned so much in therapy. I learned so much about myself. And you know, I'm you know, it's probably one of the best experiences of my life. When I look back at it now.
I don't understand like Terry's agent, because I'm going to mention the book again, and you really do need to purchase. I would strongly urge people to read Living Amongst the Beasts, because I think you'll be genuinely shocked, because I wouldn't say Terry's made this sound easy, but he would need a lot more time to explain in detail the expectations that were placed upon him to address his own offending behaviour and his past. The people that he had to sit amongst and to some degree be judged by is amazing. I'm shocked. I was absolutely shocked.
I think the biggest lessons you learn from therapy is multifaceted. You know, I learned tolerance. I learned to deal with embarrassment, shame, and ego and boredom. You know, I could spend my whole time there castigating the rapists, the paedophiles, and everyone else. I could have beat the shit out of them. I could have killed them, and I could have used their offences to make my offence, you know, seem like it wasn't as bad as theirs. But you know, the whole idea of therapy was to say, all right, fair enough, that's who they are. You know, you know what, stop blaming them for the way you are. And once I stopped that, I was able to look at my own criminality and everything else, and just deal with embarrassment. You know, deal with boredom, deal with my ego. You know, and shame. You know, once I was able to understand all of them and realise I do it physically, and deal with boredom, because when I was bored, I then got into trouble. I drank. I self-medicated. It was only by doing therapy and really finding myself that I was able to. You know, I tried to pack up drugs for years. I tried to pack up smoking for years and drinking. It was only when I'd done therapy that it was just a weight had been lifted off me subconsciously and mentally, and I was able to put it over there. And I never realised, how much effect it had on my life, because as soon as I talked about it and dealt with it over that period, I was able to pack up drinking, pack up smoking, and you know, and to, instead of like fight or flight, you know, I learned to talk. You know, I could never have a conversation for more than a minute with someone, because they just either bored the life out of me, or I just never had the intellect or the capacity to actually sit there and have a conversation for more than a few minutes that didn't involve criminality. The good thing about Grendon is that you didn't have conversations that involve criminality all the time. So I was actually talking about politics. I was actually talking about behaviours and about how to deal with them behaviours, instead of just sitting with some mug who was going to tell me how great he was at fucking doing the post office or robbing a van, or how great he felt. You know, because I never ever felt great when I was robbing people. I never ever felt anything but fear, anxiety, and trepidation. You know, there was never a time when I was doing anything that made me that it was a good feat. Admittedly, you know, when I'd done some of the jobs and I got away with it, it felt great. I got away with Verizon and we had all the money. It felt brilliant. You know, when I listen to people and they tell me they enjoy robbing people, shooting people, and killing people, it just amazes me. You know how stupid some people are. You know, and by actually looking at my own self, I realised that person who I thought was fucking stupid was actually me. You know, and it's only until I looked in the mirror and saw who I really was that I was able to change, and thank God I've changed. And I never had nowhere to go apart from change. Yeah.
So the dyslexic fella goes on to write books. I mean, what was the chances of that? I mean, did you ever imagine that? I mean, at what stage? I mean, obviously when you left, or had you made notes while you was away? Did you have an idea you might write a book?
I think for me, it was the 2.5 years I spent there with some of the worst people imaginable. You read the book, I had conversation with people that killed their mum and dads, their kids, everything. And I also saw a lot of people that were manipulating their way through the system. I saw deviants, paedophiles, rapists that were just lying to get through therapy, and then using therapy as a gold card to get out. And I saw psychologists and social workers and probationists, perpetuating their fucking behaviour. So I thought, I really need to write a book and explain from the landing side, not from some psychologist who thinks they've cured someone, because I can honestly say to you that therapy is not the medicine that cures anyone in prison. However, I did see lots of people who came like me who were really angry and really aggressive and really uptight and everything else, and really insecure and had so many insecurities. But once they started speaking and learning all the coping strategies that we learned and being able to talk, they then become more self-aware and self-conscious and confident. So, and I saw that they weren't as aggressive, they became more articulate. And so there was parts of therapy that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I realised that I learned from, and I wanted to give that, what I learned, to other people. I also wanted to expose the fact that there were people going through there that would never change. And I was so, I really wanted to get this story out that I actually sat down and I got an electric dictionary and a thesaurus, and I just started writing, and I loved it. I loved writing about what I did. And as I got better and using a thesaurus and a dictionary, I then started to really like words. And I never had the opportunity to actually express myself before. So I wrote the first book, and I thought, oh, this is really great. I really enjoyed this. And then when I came out of prison, and someone gave me my first mobile phone with predictive text, so you could do the first couple of letters and it spelled it. It was like a eureka moment. I had my notes and my computer, and all of a sudden I'm writing. I've got predictive text, and the next thing I don't need a dictionary. I don't need a thesaurus, because I'm well read, so I got quite a lot of and I got lots of words I wanted to express myself, but I could never spell them. But all of a sudden I've got this mobile phone and I'm writing away, and I'm thinking, I can just keep doing this, and that's what I did. For 6 to 8 hours every single day, I started writing, and that's what I've been doing ever since. Is for me, it's very cathartic. It's emotional. It's rewarding, and I love just nothing more than sitting on the settee with my 2 dogs, a cold drink and a coffee, and just sitting there for 8 hours every day while my girlfriend Anna's at work.
And it's become pretty much a reference book, hasn't it, Terry?
You're living amongst the beasts, yeah. It's it's sold all around the world, in America, Australia, Canada, Dubai, and continues to sell. I get, I still get checks every week, for royalties, to come in for me and my pal, my editor, and and the thing is, it empowered people to actually write about their experiences. Yeah. I actually do talk to some of the schools around here and some of the units I've been in. And the first thing I do when I go in there, I say, because they do look at me and they're all a little bit on edge, because they know why I've come there and whatever. But the first thing I say to them is that I'm dyslexic. I'm dyslexic. Is there anyone else in here that's dyslexic? I can remember going to a school across the road here in a unit, and I went in there. I could feel they was all on edge, and I said it. I've got dyslexia, but it's nothing to be ashamed of, And then there's this young kid said, I've got dyslexia, and this other kid said, I've got dyslexia, and they'd never actually told all their friends. And I said, it's really great that you've done this, because once you own it, and once you own it in front of everybody, no one can take the piss out of you, And once you own it in front of your teacher, she can now work with you, so there's no need to be confrontational, aggressive, or exclude yourself from class. because now they're going to work with you, and instead of leading the life that I did by running away and bunking off and everything, hopefully you'll be able to now learn academically, and get an apprenticeship and everything else, and then move on with your life instead of doing what I did, And then I explained to them about prison, about the smell. I don't think anyone actually mentions the smell of prison. You've got people in there that don't bath for 3 or 4 weeks. They don't clean their teeth. They wear the same old clothes for weeks and weeks and weeks. And if you're sharing a cell with someone, you've got their body odor, you've got their socks, their teeth, their BO, the food in the cell, and then you've got the smell of them going to the toilet 5 or 6 times a day, just having a lash. And then when they defecate, you're in the same cell as them. People they can't even comprehend that side of it. People smoking in the cell, putting their dog ends out on the fucking floor, and then getting their old butts and then making another cigarette out of it because they run out of tobacco. And the smell is just, it was. And then I explained to them about the danger, coming out of your cell every single day, going to dinner, going to breakfast, going to tea, and going to exercise. These are the times where you're going to get hurt if you owe money or you've been a bit stroppy to someone, and this is the easy part, because at night time, when you think it's all going to be over, that life is just going to go back to normal, that you can just sleep it off. Then the nighttime economy comes out. You've got people shouting out the windows, screaming. You've got music. You've got bells going off. You've got screws running up and down the landing because someone's just committed suicide or they cut themselves. And this is that's one day in prison. You times that by 365 days by how many years you've got in prison is hell. But people don't, and for me, I think by showing the kids that it ain't about PlayStations, it ain't about being with your mate for 3 or 4 hours. Being isolated in the cell 23 hours a day is mental. It's brain torture, and then all the other crap that comes with that. Even phoning your friend, or your girlfriend, or even writing a letter, or even going to the dentist takes weeks. You know what I mean? Going to the doctor takes. You can have a toothache or a toothache and you're in pain on a Friday night, but you've got to now wait until Monday or Tuesday for pain relief because the doctor ain't in until Tuesday. I've been in the cell where I've had to whack my head against the wall, where the pain has been relentless, and all you're prescribed is the paracetamol. You get a paracetamol for a broken arm, for mental, everything. Paracetamol is the only pain relief you get in prison until you actually see a doctor. But yourself.
When did you start working with the anti-knife crime in the community?
I came out, and I saw Camden Against Violence. I saw what they were doing, but I think they had about 300 members, and there were kids getting killed all around the area. Yeah. And I think we had 8 killings in the 2-year period. One of them was a girl. And I thought, what, I'm going to have to try and get involved, because I can remember going to the community centre and there was about 200 people in there, and they was all doing the normal shit, what's going to happen, who's going to do this, who's going to do that, and I said, we've got to stop protecting these people in this community. We've got to stop protecting these kids that are stabbing other kids, because there's no honour in stabbing an unarmed person. And why should, if you protect someone who's a criminal, fair enough, because all they're doing is criminality, and if someone calls you a grass, such is life. But if I saw someone who raping an old woman or raping a kid, I'll be straight in there. I'll be reporting it. So why wouldn't this community report these kids that are going out stabbing other kids? It was crazy. So I said, look, I'm willing as a criminal or an ex-criminal to actually be part of something that's going to say, right, listen, we've had enough of this. If you've got anything to say, anyone who stabbed anyone in this area, tell me, and I'll go and tell the police, because what, I don't care. I don't care if someone calls me a grass, because I'm not going to feed into that crap. If someone calls me a grass, it doesn't mean nothing to me, because that person has just killed a kid. So why would I feel any other way apart from putting this little mug or these people behind bars, because I don't want him to kill another kid, Yeah. And I stood up and I said it, and then since then, I went on with the marches, and we organised, loads of stuff in the area, and then we end up getting 3,500 members. and it was going really well, and then I got approached by so many mothers whose kids were being bullied. And, I'd go into schools and speak to headmasters, and they'd say, well, there's nothing we can do. So what do you mean there's nothing you can do? There's kids bullying these other kids. And if you let them get away with it, they're going to think that they can get away with it. And so there's nothing we can do because it's off school premises. Then I went to the council and they said, there's nothing we can do because no one's been attacked. Then I go to the police and they said, well, nothing has actually been reported or anything's physically done. And I thought, I'm just banging my head against the fucking wall there. How can we do and help these kids if the people that are supposed to help them won't do anything simply because there's no joined up thing between the schools, the council and the police, and they're all passing the buck to each other. And I got to the stage where I just thought, you know what, I'm not even going to bother with that. However, I decided to go and do something else. I ended up starting another one with a guy called Ben Spann called Change Your Life with Daniel Knife. And it was actually being about being more proactive, doing night crime sweeps, open up a boxing club in Coventry, and doing lots of things to raise money and awareness in the community. So yeah, I think as just being out there and being seen as someone who cares was great. But I realised that there wasn't the will in the community to actually do it. Unfortunately, people have got so many life issues going on in their life. They've got to pay the rent, they've got to pay the bills. Unfortunately, as much as they care about their kids and everything else, there's so many things that stop them from getting out there on the street, because the only way we can beat knife crime is really to actually come together as a community. Unfortunately, we can't, because there doesn't seem to be the will. It will come, but how many lives are going to be lost before people actually realise that we can only beat this by not blaming Sadiq Khan, not blaming government, not blaming the council. We need to actually all come together as one, schools, the councils, the police, the whole community to tackle this problem. But we're not there at the moment. But we know we will get there.
Sorry, off the top of your head, because I did say earlier about charitable events, can you remember what date it is in Coventry for the boxing match, the boxing tournament?
You know what?
All I know is I can't make it because I'm on holiday, but I can't for the life of me think which weekend it is.
Well, if you go on the Change Your Life Daniel Knife on Facebook or on Twitter, you'll be able to get all the dates. Offhand, I can't think of the date.
That's okay.
They're actually doing a bike ride tomorrow from Coventry to London to raise awareness and money for the boxing club.
Oh right, okay, that's good.
Yeah, so doing 50 miles on a bike every day, which is great. Ben Spann's doing it.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do before the next podcast that I do, I'll find out the date, and I might just have enough time to mention it in the next one. As I say, it's a shame because I did receive an invitation to go, and I'd have very much liked to have gone and have supported it, but sadly, I'm just happened to be away that weekend.
You know what? We're going to be here for a while. So the next one, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. I certainly hope so. Because I think it's great that you've got people that have been involved with criminality, but equally, they're working with people that have actually been victims. I'm thinking of Darren for a start. I'm thinking of Garden, who I've previously interviewed, and I just think it's great to see all these people come together and trying to do something for young people.
Yeah, galvanises the community. But you know what? The whole idea of doing what we're doing was about helping people, and that's why I wrote the final countdown to my freedom, and that's why I wrote HMP, Help Me Prepare, and we've got another book coming out. It's called Practical Psychology. It's about early intervention, because we realise that you can't arrest your way out of this. And we can't just have a 6-month program expecting this all to go away. It's not. We need a long-term solution, early intervention from primary school to junior school to secondary school and into further education. There needs to be a 16-year plan to actually eradicate this. And, because this has been going since 2008 when I went away, kids were getting stabbed, but nothing's changed. We've had 40 white papers written. Millions of pounds have been spent on white papers. And you know what they've achieved? Nothing. More kids are getting stabbed. In fact, it's escalating more than any time in the history of knife crime. So all the white papers are not basically not worth making a written on. We need to have early intervention, and we need to start it right at primary school. We need to teach these kids about shame, about ego, about embarrassment, because what the biggest, I met lots of guys in prison that killed for ego, because their ego was knocked, or someone had done something, embarrassed them, so they killed them. You know what I mean? Ego, embarrassment, shame. These are the biggest contributing factors to killing people. But yet, we don't teach the kids how to read that emotion in a way that they know it doesn't physically hurt, but and then they can respond articulately instead of responding by fight or flight or stabbing. It's such a basic thing that I learned in Grendon. And this is why I wrote Living Amongst the Beasts, because I want to share that knowledge, and I want to share the practical advice and the solutions that we can actually give and input onto these kids that would actually make them function in a completely different way. It took me a long, long time. When I was in therapy, when I got into a confrontation, the first thing I did was I'd say fuck, or I'd have a go at someone and I want to punch them. But it was only after being in that situation, every week for a couple of months, I realised that what, if I keep swearing and if I keep doing the same thing again, I'm going to get the same reaction from that person. So instead of swearing, screaming, and everything else, I started to articulate a response, and I told them exactly how they made me feel, but in a way that never elicited a response from them that was argumentative or confrontational again. So I learned to function on a completely different level. And that's what we need to teach these kids, that when they get into that situation, they feel that adrenaline rush, that you then start to control it instead of that adrenaline starting to control them. So it's I think the lessons that we want to do, look, I don't know, have you used history since you left prison or left school? I haven't. We should be teaching emotional development inside schools, along with history, along with French, and along with everything else, because this will save lives. This will empower kids to survive. Yeah. Because all we're doing at the moment is we're setting them up to fail.
I mentioned at the beginning, Terry, that you've also become an entrepreneur now as well. Do you just want to mention that?
Well, I've worked with my daughter and her boyfriend Robin, and we started Scoff Meal about 3 years ago. Scoff Meal, Scoff Meals, and we've smashed it. We've gone from strength to strength over the last 3 years. We now employ 22 people. We've got a massive following on Instagram. We tailor-made food for people that want to lose weight or they want to bulk up. But it's really nutritional food. It's marinated. It tastes divine. We've got some really good chefs. But yeah, we started from nothing and we've made it into a really good business that employs 22 people now. We've also involved now in another business. It's called Let's Sanify. It's actually we hopefully get the keys tomorrow for the new factory. We've acquired £90,000 to have it all kitted out with machinery, so we can start giving young kids an apprenticeship up there. And work alongside the guys that are actually making the sanitizers and everything else. So, yeah, really, really excited about that. It's a work in progress, but we spent the whole year bringing this along, and hopefully in the next few months I'll be able to come back and tell you that it's a success. It's going to be a success. We've got some really good contracts, and it's going to go from strength to strength. But watch this space.
Well, what I'm going to ask you to do, Terry, because I'm just going to say a few words before we finish up. If you can just stay on the line, and I'll have a chat with you. I always say this. Sorry, go on.
I just wanted to go one more. When we finish, about the kids' books we got. Yeah.
Yeah.
But over this COVID period, with Scoff Meals, we made 10,000 care packages for the homeless and everything in the community. And it was off. We worked with Yay Hire and Vicky Patterson, and we all donated food, and we ended up doing 10,000 packages over the lockdown period. My girlfriend Anna is a teaching assistant in the Fleet Road School. We had 3 or 4 people die very close to us around here from COVID. And we, but every single day that she went into school looking after all the key workers' kids. Now we're talking teachers' kids, doctors' kids, and everyone. She went every single day, through this lockdown period. There's other people. Once the COVID started, they went indoors and they shut their doors and that's it. But that's understandable because they don't want to die. But she went out every single day, and she knew the danger. And, she moved me so much that I wanted to give something back. And, so what I did, I asked a couple of girls I know. One of them's called Scarlett Harmony. And the other one's called Molly Hedges. And I asked him to illustrate some pictures for me because I wrote a story. And this is Harmony's. We called it the Doodles. This is about the adventures of... This is Scarlett's one. They're both the same story, but different illustrations. One for younger kids and one for older kids. And what we're going to do, we're going to dedicate these to all the teaching assistants, all the teachers, and all the headmasters in the area, especially Fleet Road, which I'm going to start dedicating. Every time we sell books, I'm going to start dedicating, and the money we get from, I'm going to start giving them to the schools for nothing because they've done such a great job, and there's a dedication in there to all of them as well, and on all the kids as well, and they've done such a fantastic job. It's unbelievable, and I still get choked when I realise that that they went to school every single day, knowing full well that they could have got COVID, and they carried on regardless. That takes a lot of courage. They're the real unsung heroes. I've not done anything apart from make a few meals and write a few books. To go out every single day and put your life on the line for all these kids is commendable, honourable, and I take my hat off to all of them. And hence we've done the Doodles, and not hope. Yeah.
Well, that's good that we acknowledge that, Terry. If nothing else, because my wife works in a school as well, as you know. So it's saved me saying it all now. She'll hear it all tomorrow. But no, I am going to finish up now, and I know the criteria for coming on to Frankly Speaking is that we want to speak to real people and inspiring people, and I want to thank you for sharing your story today because it's certainly been real, and it's more than inspiring on lots of different levels, and I really want you to carry on doing what you're doing because you're coming up with new ideas, fresh ideas. You're attracting people, to the various causes and so on. So that certainly fits the inspiring description.
Yeah. Before I go, I just wanted to say that living a criminal lifestyle is a massive price to pay. Whether it's drug abuse, self-medication, drinking, everything else. You lose so much of who you really are. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I write the books, and that's one of the reasons I do what I do because I don't want one kid to lead the same life as me or think it's great. I want him to lead a proper, productive life. If I can persuade one kid from leading the same life as I did, then I've done my job. I'm a born again Christian now, which had a massive impact on my life as well, and which I never ever talk about. But I can remember going to church and listening to someone, and they said, "Listen, God says just come to me and let me do the rest." And since I became a Christian and got baptized, I came to Him, and He's done the rest for me. And you know what? I've gone from strength to strength because I've got a new belief now. Yeah. So,
well done, Terry. Terry, I'm going to say a few words now. In the meantime, I want to wish you all the best. We'll certainly keep in contact. I'm sure everybody that watches this will do the same. They'll all wish you the best. So you take care. Keep doing what you're doing. As I say, I think you're doing some fantastic stuff. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to thank everybody again for coming onto the podcast. I'd like to thank Mac the Hat Media again for their support and their help. I would ask people to subscribe. That give me some encouragement, and also let YouTube know that we're about. But once again, thanks very much to Terry Ellis for coming on and sharing his stories, experiences, and more to the point, what he's learned from them, and how he's trying to pass that on and educate other people. So Terry, I wish you all the best, mate, and
Cheers,
I'll be keeping in touch. Cheers, pal.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Frank.
Bye.